Hey guys, it's Melissa here from melissaopen.com. Welcome to another episode of Awaken Your Inner Awesomeness, the weekly podcast devoted to all things spirituality and self-improvement. I am so excited you're here with us today. Some of you are listening to the podcast via your favorite podcast app, and some of you are watching us from the new reality TV network. And I'm so excited to be here. If you would like to watch this episode, you can join us. Just go to New Reality TV. So I'm very excited because today we have with us a very special guest. We have Miss Gabby Rosely with us, and she is the host of the Gabby Rosely podcast. I was fortunate enough to be a guest on her podcast, and she is here today. She is a podcaster and coach, and she's here to talk to us about breaking out of our comfort zone, which I think is such an important topic. And she has a very interesting story. So Gabby was a collegiate swimmer, and then after an injury, kind of had to shift and alter her life course, and has learned a lot of things along the way, was a young entrepreneur, and now is just helping so many people improve their lives. And so I cannot wait to have our conversation today. I want to thank you so much, Gabby, for being here with us.
Thank you so much, Melissa. I'm really, really excited. And I just want to say a big thank you for welcoming me onto the show and also for coming on my show. I'm really excited for that episode to air as well.
Yeah, we had such a great conversation, and I can't wait to talk to you again today. Before we get started talking about how people can break out of their comfort zone, tell us just a little bit about yourself. How did you start helping people and podcasting and doing all the things?
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, I did have that career-ending injury. I was a swimmer, and in my first race at USC, I blew out my shoulder. And at that point, I really had to confront whether or not I wanted to go through all the rehab, continue doing what I had been doing for almost my whole life. And I really had to come face to face with the fact that I had lost my heart for it and I had lost my passion for it. So that was the first kind of identity crisis, identity shift that fast tracked my spiritual awakening because I was forced to confront all the labels that I had assigned myself up until that point. So that was when I really jumped into a new chapter of my life that was about self-discovery, about embracing this idea of breaking out of your comfort zone. And as you mentioned, I did start my first business at 18. And so that got me onto the entrepreneur train. And then I stepped into a leadership role because we had a team of about 8 instructors around the area that I live. Oakland County, Michigan was where we really helped to teach kiddos and even some adults how to swim. So that was my first business venture that all into a leadership role. And then I got hired out of college. I dropped out when I blew up my shoulder from the school I went to in California. I actually went to the dean of students. I was like, I don't think that I want to continue at this university. And it was a whirlwind. Like I was all the way across the country. And not only did I drop out of college, but I quit my sport. And I felt like I let so many people down. My ego took a fat blow. And yeah, that was an interesting time. But anyways, I did end up transferring to Michigan State. And after I graduated, I got hired into a corporate role. And that called me into a higher management position, learned a lot more about leadership, and was exposed to strengths training while I was there. I was exposed to one-to-one mentorship from a business side that really did focus on the personal kind of heart component of how it calls you to show up as a leader when you have to guide others with what they're going through. And as you know, as a teacher, oftentimes you double as a therapist, I'm sure. So same thing for managers, same things for leaders. And with the operations and whatnot, I was good at it, but I felt so fulfilled and deeply aligned when I was working with other people and just empowering them really to see the gifts that they already had, but having those conversations that kind of ignited that fire and giving some of those practical tools and applications from my experience with a lot of the younger high schoolers and college kids that were on the team I led, but also with the older generation. And so then I was hired to do my first speaking engagement from there, reached out to, super aligned. And then, I just kind of followed the call after that. I followed the synchronicities. I said yes before I was ready. And after 2 years in that role, I said yes to a volunteer position in Costa Rica, was there for 4 months. And then I really nurtured my business there, had clients reaching out to me to work together, then had my really big first in-person speaking engagement come to me last year. Again, so aligned. Really, it came to me, it fell in my lap. So the more I've learned that I follow my heart and what excites me, the more that things begin to align and really come into my life. So it's a little bit about my story.
And it's quite a story you have. So you are perfectly experienced in talking to people about stepping outside that comfort zone because you had to do just that. I mean, you had lived your life one way, the training for your sport and going to college and doing what other people expected you to do. And then all of a sudden, just everything shifted. And that had to be super uncomfortable for you at first.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So, how did you deal with that? And how do you help others who maybe they're sitting out there saying, I don't like my life. I don't like my job. I don't like this relationship. I don't like, we can plug in, fill in the blank with so many things that people might be sitting there saying, I want to change, that they're dragging their feet. They're just sitting on the fence because they're too afraid to make that change, or they just don't even know where to start. What advice would you give for those people?
Yeah. I think that sometimes when we're in the wallows and we are struggling, we're overwhelmed, we don't even know what it is exactly that's triggering us or causing these feelings of burnout, exhaustion, disalignment. And so I think that these emotions are really a call to look deeper into what is going on in your life. What relationships do you have that tend to bring out these emotions in you? What labels are you putting on yourself right now, or how do you identify that may not feel aligned with you right now? So it's an opportunity to look into maybe your career and what you do for work, and then going a little bit deeper than that, your responsibilities at work, and looking into not only the things that don't align but the things that do align as well. And so I think it's really just it's a call for an inventory of your life, of like, all right, what are the modus operandi you're operating under right now, the labels that you're attaching to yourself and your identity, which ones feel good, which ones don't, and then which ones do you have an opportunity to maybe put a little bit of distance between, and which ones do you have to shift your perspective and focus on the things that come along with that label, or with that career, or with that relationship that do feel aligned. So I think it's a really, really good opportunity to take inventory and then ask yourself if you have control, where you can exercise that control. And if you do not, where can you shift your perspective? Because at the end of the day, we do have a choice. We do have a choice. And sometimes the choice doesn't boil down to black, white, yes, no, goodbye, hello. But it does come down to how are you pouring into your attitude? How are you willing to shift your perspective, or really the relationship you have with your relationship to whatever it is?
So let's say someone has a situation in their life and they don't feel like they have control over this situation. What are some things you talked about shifting your perspective? What does that look like for people?
Yeah. So I'm going to use when I had my career ending injury, because I did not have control over that. And I know that that can be something that people may resonate with, like a physical ailment that you feel like you don't have control over. And so when I was in that position, I didn't have control over, okay, can I change this? Can I fix and rehab my shoulder within 3 days? But what I did have control over was, what is this calling into my life right now, whether I like it or not? It's causing me to pause. It's causing me to slow down. It's causing me to take a step back. And so if you're looking at a situation that you don't have control over, think about what position it's forcing you into right now. And then when you consider that position, then I just want you to kind of do like a little blank notepad exercise of like, what are my circumstances? And don't even filter it out between good and bad. But then once you have this list of what does my reality look like right now, whether I chose it or not, then you have this in front of your face and you're really able to interpret like, all right, here's what it is. Now, am I able to translate that into a language, or maybe it's just change the font a little bit to be more aligned with what feels good? What feels good in my body? Like for me, it was pause and I couldn't control it. So I had to reflect, all right, I'm taking moments away from my sport. So now I have a little bit more time to focus on my studies. Now I have more time to focus on my friendships. And now I have more time to focus on, I don't know, maybe pursuing new hobbies. And on the other side of that, I was also completely lost and I was overwhelmed and I felt like I was gaining weight because I didn't. And so it was like body image struggles. It was like, okay, now I feel homesick because I don't have something I'm taking my, self out of my head to do 3, 4, 5 hours a day. So there was a lot. It wasn't all good, but it was like, here's the situation. Now, how can I approach this from a point that's going to serve me?
So, I have another question for you. A lot of people, when they're thinking about making life changes, would you agree that oftentimes situations happen to us that kind of force our attention back on that situation that needs to be changed because we're not in alignment? Because I feel like in my life, I always joke and say, whenever I have tower moments, it's because I wasn't moving. So the universe was like, well, if you're not going to do it, we'll do it for you, and causes something to happen that I didn't want to happen, but needed to happen in order to move me on the right path. Do you feel like that's a common thing?
1000%. And even though it is very difficult when the universe like puts something in front of your face that you literally cannot deny, and it might cause a whirlwind and a total storm for you, it actually gives me a little bit of relief because I think in this, age of spirituality and a lot of people are awakening, and it can be a lot of pressure when you come to this realization that it's like you create your reality and that you are able to manifest anything you want and everything is available to you right now, and can live in the 5D, raise your vibration. It's a lot. It's overwhelming sometimes when we feel like it falls all on us. And so I have witnessed this in my life so many times. And whether if anybody's listening right now or not, you attribute it to a universal force that is acting in your life. You, I'm sure, can relate to times when shit hit the fan and you're like, this is not what I wanted. This is not what I planned. And so it actually provides me with some relief because it's like as much pressure as I put on myself. There have been times in my life that I have wanted things so badly that have just come crashing down and they have to burn and, rise in flames before the dust can settle. So not only is it reassuring and encouraging for me that I am supported, whether I like the way it looks or not initially, I am supported by forces that are stronger than just myself. And not only is it that, they're supporting me, but I believe that they are supporting the highest good. And so I think that this is an opportunity for you to look at these forces of the universe as being operating in the highest good, and you signed up for that. So I think that you can also attribute yourself to I am serving the highest good by enduring this process and by holding the faith that there is a reason for why this is happening. And it might not come to you immediately, but I think also at the end of the day, I would rather think that way than be like, oh, everything just, happens to me. There's no stake in the game. That is also a choice. And I believe in that wholeheartedly, but I also choose to believe that.
Yeah, I had to laugh when you said I chose this because that's a conversation that I've had a lot with my listeners, and I've said, we chose this before we came here. And I've had people reach out and say, I would never have chosen this. And it was like, I totally understand, but you did. Like we all did. But the issue is that on the other side of when we're choosing our path and we're choosing what we want to learn and what we want to experience, we don't remember what it felt like to be here or how heavy it is, or we didn't know what we were going to truly experience. And to me, I kind of liken it to taking a college course. You look at the catalog and you're like, that sounds so interesting. And then you take it and you show up for the course and you're like, oh my gosh, why did I pick this class? It's horrible. So same kind of thing. You think, why would I do this to myself? But everything is happening for a reason in order to shape you and for you to learn lessons. And I actually believe that. So let's address the what I think is the big elephant in the room is fear. And what should someone do if they're just paralyzed in fear? Because we know that when people are affected by trauma, they have either the fight, flight, or freeze response. And there's so many people stuck in that freeze response where they're not doing anything. They're not taking any action, where they just procrastinate, procrastinate, procrastinate because they know they need to do something. And yet they just are afraid of what could happen. So that fear is what's driving them. How do we move those people from a place where they're paralyzed in fear to where they're able to move forward and actually take some steps of progress towards where they want to be?
Yeah, this is a tough one. And I think procrastination is such a pattern in my life of, whether it's procrastination or it's hyperachiever, I kind of fluctuate, right? And so I think that when you do feel frozen in this fear, I I relate it back to what we were talking about the overwhelm initially, is like sometimes you forget what you're even scared of. And so sometimes the feeling of fear can be so overwhelming that it actually takes you off in so many different tangents that now it's like you're so ungrounded that you almost forget why you're scared in the first place. And sometimes that is a traumatic response or a physical response to whatever you're processing on a spirit level, on a mental level, emotional level. But I think that when you really are with a lot of fear, um, I think taking a moment to allow that fear to be there, to be in your body, to just take a moment to make the conscious decision to say, all right, I feel fear right now, and I am going to allow this emotion in my body, and I'm going to allow it to take me where it needs me. And so instead of trying to run from the fear, and I know it sounds so much easier said than done, but being intentional with this fear. If you are frozen, if you are procrastinating because you're scared, if you can sit with that fear and ask yourself, what is it that you are afraid of? And I want you to just kind of see where that takes you. And I want you to also be in your body too. So if you're starting to feel this in a certain area of your body, like be intentional about like place your hands on that area of your body and just allow that feeling to and ask it questions and ask what is trying to be communicated to you through this fear. And you might not come up with an answer right away, but this process of accepting your emotion, I think, is the first thing that you need to do. It's not take action to try to run from it. It's not take action to try to fix it. It's just sitting with it and asking what it has to teach you. Because I say emotions are our greatest teachers, but specifically negative emotions that we deem negative, right? I think that those have so much to teach us. So allowing that emotion to call you into those states of whether it's thinking or feeling or both, um, to really sit with that. And then everybody has their own process of like how they're going to work through that emotion and how often they're going to revisit it. And I'm not going to make a blanket statement that you have to do this every hour on the hour. You've got to do it every morning, evening, and night. So you've got to find what works for you in a safe place where you are really showing up for yourself in full acceptance and unconditional love. But then from that point, I personally like to take myself into, okay, what do I have available to me right now to soothe? And I want you to be very conscious of the way that you are soothing yourself, because I don't want you to escape from things, but I want you to embrace the essence of who you are, so that you almost bring light into that shadow. So, okay, how can I soothe? What makes feel good? Is it, conversations with my friends? Is it music? Is it dancing? Do the things that make you feel good, and don't do it for any other reason than to feel the essence of who you are. You don't have to do it to fix the fear. You don't have to do it to, run from the fear, but be intentional and be conscious about the ways you're shining light in that shadow, and make sure that you're doing that in your highest good. You're not escaping, you're not running from.
I love that. I think that's really good advice. I think you're absolutely correct. You have to process what you're feeling before you can move on to the next thing. So I'd love for you to tell us just a little bit about your podcast because you have your own podcast that you host. And if people are out there listening, I know you've gone through spiritual awakening too, so it might be very aligned with those who are out there listening. So tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So my podcast is now called the Gabby Rosely Podcast, and I changed the name because I had called it Crucial Conversations beforehand, and then I had a dear friend of mine say, "Hey, I think this name might be trademarked. Like, you might want to think about that." And I was like, "Uh-oh." So I was like, "You know what? To avoid all that, I'm going to call it the Gabby Rosely Podcast." Anyways, so on my show, I started it as an outlet of just pure expression and curiosity. I was like, "Okay, I enjoy talking. I enjoy having conversations like this. Can I create something in my life that's going to bring more of that into my life?" And that's what I did. And then it started to grow to be an opportunity to empower other people through these tools that bridge the metaphysical, the spiritual, the faith, the belief, the emotional side with the practical tools, with the groundedness of what it means to really be a human being, right? Because of course, we are all spiritual beings, but as of right now, we're operating in a vessel that is grounded in the 3D. So I think it's very, very important to have the practical application side of things with the metaphysical understanding and feeling of things. And so it's kind of like a bridge of the masculine and feminine energy in a way that I feel like a lot of people can relate and ponder. And I include conversations about spirituality, but I also include a lot of conversations about communication, relationships, leadership, philosophy, science. So really, it's just an outlet for me to have conversations that stimulate the mind, body, and spirit in whatever way comes through, and just giving people too an opportunity to share their heart, because I think that's what we need right now is we need people sharing from their heart. We need people that are communicating with one another from a place of authentic expression. That's curiosity, imagination, but authentic expression to me is so important. And so I like to invite guests on the show that have a message that they feel resonates deeply with their authenticity.
I love that. And I love that you're providing a place for people to come and, you know, n- nourish their brains, bodies, their souls, all of that. I think it's so important right now because these times are really tough and it can be really easy to let that energy just kind of run away with you and make you feel some kind of way. But we really need to be uh, focused on grounding and, not letting what's going on around us affect what's going on inside of us. So I love that you do that. Now, if anyone wants to follow you or listen to your podcast or work with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
So I know, Melissa, when we spoke offline, that there will be some things in the show notes. So my website will be linked. And then I'll also send over my email so that if anybody wants to reach out to me via email, have like a one-to-one conversation, I would love to connect. I do have an Instagram that will be linked as well. That's more fun, silly, social. But I do offer one-to-one mentorship. I do a lot of work with leaders and entrepreneurs and high achieving individuals that are looking to bridge more of the emotional body with the mental body and kind of bringing that authentic expression into this new paradigm of leadership. And then, of course, my podcast, the Gabby Rosely Podcast. And other than that, I do speaking engagements. I do interactive workshops. I've done, ceremonies and co-hosted events that are really focused on nurturing the spirit. But then I do corporate conferences that are also kind of igniting that same kind of fire, but in a little bit of a different font. So yeah, that's my jam.
Awesome. So now, before we go, I would like to pull a card for everybody for the collective just to see like what message the universe has for us. And I'm pulling cards from a deck by Angela Rose, which was gifted to me by one of my listeners, which I absolutely love. So we have three cards come out. So I'm going to take all three cards. And this is so funny. You can't make up how these come out, but the very first card coming out is be your soul or become your soul, not your role.
Mm.
Who are you at your core? You are not the role you play in life or the many hats you wear. You are much more than that. Journal who you think you are at your core. What do you value? What matters most to you? And then there's a mantra that goes with this card, which is, I am a divine soul.
Wow.
And the second card that came out is the dreamer inside of you will teach you everything. So for those who think maybe they don't have enough, you are here to discover your purpose and set yourself free. You were made to feel what it feels like to soar with the eagles high in the sky. Visualize your dream. Be as clear as you can. Imagine every detail, feeling, and more. Imagine it fully in your mind until you can actually feel it as if it were already real now. And the mantra that goes with this card is, when I tap into the feeling of my dream, I can experience it as if it were real now. Tapping into the feeling brings me closer and closer to my dream. So I make that up. And the last one, receive. Are you able to receive compliments, money, or support? If we are only giving without receiving, we become resentful. Today, I receive with an open heart. Receiving is not greedy or selfish. It's part of stepping into our divine feminine energy. Pay attention to how you receive today. Receive with an open and gracious heart. And the mantra that goes with this card is, I am open to receiving abundance. So,
Wow.
like, you
Wow.
can set up how aligned that was with the message that you had today. So that's amazing.
Wow, that's beautiful. And I love that the last card was focused on receiving, because that's something that I am really being intentional about right now in my life, because yeah, I think it's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to stress to anybody who's out there, it's never too late to jump out of that comfort zone and to try new things, whether, you want to go for that new job, you want to go back to school, if you want to go out on a date, even though you haven't dated in 50 years or whatever, I don't know, whatever it is that you want to do. And it can be something so small. It just reminds me of also, again, another listener who said they'd always wanted to go to this Mexican restaurant, but didn't want to go by themselves. And they just kind of felt weird about it or awkward, but did it anyway. And they're like, it was the best food I ever had. Oh, that's such an amazing thing. I mean, you're never too anything to do anything. So I love the message that you had today. And I want to thank you so much for being here to share your wisdom with us and for everything that you do and having your podcast and helping others. It was just an amazing conversation. So thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you for this platform, and thank you for all that you're doing. I see you, and I'm really, really happy that we were able to connect.
Yes, me too. And I want to thank all of you for being here with us today. As always, if you like this podcast, please subscribe. Please go and listen to Gabby's podcast. Follow both of our podcasts. Leave a positive review from wherever you're listening. And of course, the greatest compliment you can pay me is to share this podcast with anyone you think might benefit. I hope that you guys have an amazing week. I am sending you so much love and light, and I will talk to you soon. Bye, guys.